Hello, this is Anne, your sister and friend. Let me go back to the subject we started a while back on trying to identify what it is that you would call your biggest problem in life. And we had identified a few things where somebody says, my biggest problem in life is, somebody would say procrastination, fear of being wrong, inability to keep friends, anger issues, addiction, and the list goes on. So we had put a pause at that point and we said, try and identify what is this thing that you would call your biggest problem in life. If I haven't mentioned it, identify it. Once you're able to see it, then we can begin to identify how to resolve it. And the reason why we need to resolve this is because it has become your biggest problem in life because you have been able to identify it, and we live our lives based on our beliefs. So you already believe that this is the biggest problem in my life. So what that means to you as an individual is that if you're going to win in this life, you will have to overcome that thing. So your winning in life is dependent on you overcoming that thing. If you do not overcome that thing, you do not win. You will not find yourself winning in life. So it is at that very point that you win in life or lose. At that very point of what you call your biggest problem in life, at that very point, you either win or you lose in this life. So if you're losing, it is probably as a result of that. If you're winning, it is because you have been able to overcome that. So we had put a pause and we decided to go inward and identify that thing, because once you identify it, then you can begin to work on it. And the moment you win on that point, you begin to win in life. I'm kind of repeating myself, but it's important to get it. You win or lose at that point. Somebody might say, my biggest problem in life is pride or competitiveness or comparison or rivalry or coveting, wanting those things that belong to others. If you have identified that as your biggest problem in life, then the reality is you have already identified that you have been losing at that very point. So you need to win, you need to resolve it, you need to overcome that, you need to get it out of your way for you to start winning in life and to find fulfillment in life. So I had given an introduction and I had said that there is no temptation that has come upon us except that which is common to man. And the Bible clearly says in that very scripture I'm trying to quote, it is in 1 Corinthians 10:13, that there is no temptation that we go through except that which is common to man. And God is faithful. He will not allow us to be tempted beyond what we can bear. And even when we are tempted, He provides a way out. So meaning that this thing that you are calling your biggest problem in life, it's like a thorn in your flesh, buffeting you every other day, stopping you from moving forward, stopping you from winning in life. God is saying it is common to man. It's not something new. It is common. You're not the only one going through that kind of stuff. It is common. And God is also saying that I have also made sure, me as your God, I have made sure that whatever it is you're being subjected to as a trial, as a temptation, I have made sure that you can overcome it. Meaning there is something that I have placed inside of you that gives you the ability to rise above it. So you are not a victim of this thing. There is something that I have put within you. This is God speaking. There is something I have built within you that helps you to rise above it. So this thing is not new, number one. Number two, you can handle it. Meaning you can change it. You can win this thing. You can. So at that point, you begin to realize that there's definitely a way out. So then we put a pause and we said, we want to identify what is the way out. And now that's why I'm here today. We want to begin to identify the way out. So to find the way out, I want to bring to your attention the three kinds of voices that we hear. Because if God has provided a way out and you need to find that way out, then you need to be able to hear God. Let me say that again. If God has provided a way out, and the reality is yes, He has. It's not if. He has provided a way out, because His word is true. He has provided a way out. So because God has provided a way out, and we need to find that way out, then we will need to hear from God, because He's the only one who knows the way out. If we cannot hear from God, how will we know where to turn when we need to? How will we know where to stop when we need to? How will we navigate through this situation? Because we have to do it. We have to navigate through it. If we cannot hear God, who has the way out, He has provided a way out, how will we find the way out if we cannot hear Him? Now, one of the most unfortunate things that I see in this life that we are living is that a majority of people cannot hear God. That's the most unfortunate thing. And it's not because God is not speaking. He doesn't have a problem hearing us. But when He speaks, we have a problem hearing Him. So God can be speaking loudly, trying to show you the way out, but you can't hear. And so long as you're not hearing, you will not find the way out. So it is not that God doesn't want us to find the way out. It's not that He wants us to continue running around in circles. No. The problem is not God. The problem is the way out that He has provided. We can only get to see it by hearing it from Him. By hearing Him instruct us on how to get out of this thing that we are calling the biggest problem in our lives. He did not create us to get stuck at this point of our biggest problem in life. He did not create us to get stuck in that thing. It may be a stumbling block on our way, but we are already assured that there is a way out. So we will need to hear God instructing us on the way out. So then, there are three voices that we hear constantly. The first voice that we hear is the voice of God. And somebody would be like, I have never heard the voice of God. And I will tell you, you have many times. It's only that you did not distinguish that as the voice of God, but it was Him. He has not hidden Himself from anybody. He has made himself accessible. He has made himself reachable. I would use that word. He has made sure that anybody who calls upon him or who dares to seek him will find him. He has made sure that he can be reached. He has not hidden himself from anybody. So when we are not hearing him, it is not because he is not speaking. It is because there are some other voices that are speaking louder than his voice, and we are more attentive to those other voices. So the second voice that we hear is the voice of self. And that is where most of the problems are. Some people might think, oh, it is the devil, it is the devil, it is the devil. Yes, he plays his cards carefully behind the scenes, but many times he will not show his ugly head when he knows we can do his bidding without too much of a fight. So we allow him space. We give him a lot of space. And many times we are blaming him, and he simply found an open door. He walked in and he did what he does best, which is to steal, to kill, and destroy. That's what he does best. So he came around and he found an opening. He got in, did his nasty work, and we cry for, oh, it's the devil, the devil. Many times it has nothing to do with him. Many times it has to do with us. Because God gave us a free will. Satan knows that God has given us a free will. So he knows that God will not interfere with our decision making. He allows us to make those decisions ourselves. So when we make the wrong decisions and they attract Satan, why do we blame him for it? Anyway, I am not an advocate of the devil. You can be sure of that. I hate him. I hate him hard. I do. He is nasty. But I have come to know over the years that unless we give him space, unless we open doors for him, he will really, really, really struggle to gain ground in our lives. But when we easily open the doors for him and we make it easy for him to access us, then he comes in. And whenever he gets those opportunities, he's a destroyer. He's a destroyer. He does destroying. He destroys things. He can destroy lives. So the second voice is the voice of self. And the third voice is the voice of Satan. He uses his demon spirits to speak. And he speaks in our thoughts. The battle goes on in the mind. When God is speaking, he speaks in our thoughts. When Satan comes in speaking, he does it in our thoughts. So that is where the battleground is. That's a battlefield. It's in the mind. So let's try and see how to differentiate the three voices. And then we identify now the way out, because we need to hear God, because he's the only one who can show us the way out. He's the only one who can show us the way out. We can try looking for that way out in our own understanding, in our own way, but we won't find that way out until we hear it from God. We will need to hear it from him. We will need to get instructed by him. So it is necessary, very necessary, to hear God. It's very necessary to hear God. All right. How do we identify the voice of God, the voice of self, the voice of Satan? The voice of God is always positive. The voice of God is always positive, meaning when God speaks to you, you will hear it in your spirit. It may come in as a thought or a feeling or a conviction, or somebody will speak it, or you will hear it from a preacher, or you will read it from your Bible. You will hear it. And when you hear it, the first thing you will identify is that it is a positive voice. It is positive. Meaning it is not saying negative things that are saddening, things that are things that make you feel, the lack of peace and joy. The voice of God will come into your heart, into your spirit, into your mind, into your thoughts, even in your dreams, with a positivity in it. You can tell this is God because it is positive. It is very positive. It is positive. We know what positive is. It is positive. We know what negative is because we've been hearing a lot of negative information from all over. We are bombarded with a lot of negativity from all directions. So for what is called negative, we know. What is called negative, we know. We have heard that a lot. But unfortunately, we are getting used to the negative, that positive doesn't sound nice. That positive information tends to sound unreal. So if you find yourself struggling with something after you've heard it in your spirit, it sounds so good that it feels like it's unreal. You need to look at it again. It could just be God speaking. Now, how will you know that this is God? Because you need to know so that you're able to either follow it or reject it. If you have spent some time having conversations with God, and this is what happens in our mind, in our thoughts, and all that, in our spirit. Following what I have taught in the past, that you cannot feel something unless you had thoughts that are in that manner. For example, if you have thoughts of fear, you're thinking thoughts of fear, before you know it, you'll begin to have feelings of fear. If you have thoughts of bad things that happened, they begin to provoke feelings of like nature. For example, anger, bitterness, hatred, resentment, anxiety, all that. So the kind of thoughts that you find yourself thinking will invoke some kind of feelings. You cannot feel something unless you were thinking thoughts of that nature. So if you have thoughts of shame, you'll begin to experience feelings of shame. So whatever it is that is going on in your mind, and that's what we are calling conversations, either with God, with ourselves, or with Satan using his demons. We will only be able to tell who we were listening to by checking how we feel. This is something that I've used for a long, long time since I got to know about it. And it has helped me to identify who I'm listening to at any given time. So if you have spent some time listening to God, what are the kind of feelings that you will find yourself experiencing? If you have spent your time listening to God, the voice of God, in your mind, in your thoughts, in your heart, and so on, you will find thoughts that are filled with, for example, peace. You find yourself feeling some peace on the inside of you. You feel encouraged. You feel strengthened. You feel joyful, even feel excited. You feel happy. You feel comforted. You feel hopeful. You feel those kind of feelings that we call good. There's some good feelings that you will find on the inside of you if you have spent some time listening to the voice of the Holy Spirit, that is the voice of God. So, anytime you think about this thing that you're calling your biggest problem in life, anytime you take some moment to think about resolving it, and the kind of thoughts that go on regarding that issue do not leave you with feelings of encouragement, positivity, hopeful, strengthened and comforted and peaceful. If you don't find yourself with those kind of feelings, then it simply means whoever you were talking to or whoever was speaking to you in regard to this issue, it wasn't God. So whatever it is that has come into your thoughts in terms of a way out, then it cannot be from God. So reject it. Let me say that again. Anytime you think about this issue, because we need to resolve it, and I know you're trying hard to resolve it. So anytime you begin to think about it, because you have to think about it in order to find the way out, you need to engage your mind, you need to engage your heart, you need to pray about it. Not just engaging your thoughts, even praying about it, because only God can reveal the way out. So when we begin to pray about it and you're serious about it and you're waiting on God to speak to you about it, if whatever you have heard going on in your mind, in your thoughts, does not leave you with a feeling of encouragement, hope, positivity, comfort, strengthened, if you don't feel that, then it simply means the voice that spoke to you as you were praying, as you were waiting on God, that was not God speaking. That wasn't God speaking. So whatever it is that you have identified as a way out, if it is making you feel like depressed and tired, and you feel like giving up, and you're feeling like, I don't know if I will ever get out of this, and you want to just lift up your hands and say, forget it. If that is what you're feeling after waiting on God and asking God to give you a way out, then it simply means whatever you heard, you did not hear it from God. So whatever you heard, reject it. That cannot be God. The voice of God does not leave us with those feelings of discouragement and so on and so forth. So the voice of God will leave you with that good feeling. So whatever you will get in your spirit, and it makes you feel good and hopeful and everything, then that is one of the indicators that is God. That is the way out. That is what God is revealing to me as my way out. Let's look at how the voice of self manifests. The voice of self is also positive. It is also positive. But it is different from the voice of God in that it is a self-centered voice. It is self-centered. The voice of God is others-centered, meaning when God is speaking to you about your way out of this issue, your way out of this situation, your way out of this problem that you're calling the biggest problem in your life, when God is speaking to you about your way out, God is considering others. In as much as your way out will be helpful to you, God is concerned about others, meaning the way out for you will not just be for you to brag about it, to show people, to prove to somebody somewhere that you thought I would never make it. You will, that is not God. That is self. So the voice of God is others-centered. So in as much as your way out will be helpful to you, in as much as your way out will leave you feeling good about everything, God is more concerned about how that will impact others. It is others-centered. So the difference then comes in on how you feel after listening to yourself. When you're looking for the way out and you're listening to yourself instead of listening to God, this is how you will feel. In as much as the conversation would be positive, the feelings would be something like, if only, and I wish. So there is some feelings of frustration right there. Because you were in this space where you were imagining yourself having overcome this problem and how you will feel good and how you will prove yourself, and the world will begin to see who you really are, and you will rise up, and you have some people in your mind that you would really want to prove to them that you are not what they think you are. So there is an aspect of comparison and competitiveness there, and some even pride probably behind the scenes. So when you find yourself meditating on a way out of this issue, of this problem, and you find yourself with that kind of a feeling of wanting to prove, so the moment you come back to yourself, you have just come out of that daydream, that fantasy world where you were seeing yourself building those castles and everything. When you land back, the first feeling that will come upon you is that of frustration, even some feeling of defeat, because you're like, if only. So anytime you find yourself with if only I had this amount of money, if only this thing could get out of my life, if only I knew how to get this thing out, if only. Anytime you find yourself falling back into if only and I wish, if only God would hear me, I wish, then it simply means that all those positive thoughts that were flowing in your mind, and those thoughts that were giving you such a high, you're walking on the clouds. That was you speaking to yourself. It wasn't God. Anything that God begins to speak to us in our spirits, those things that God speaks, they never end up with if only or I wish. They don't. There is nothing like if only with God. There is nothing like I wish with God. So anytime you have if only and I wish, then you were talking with yourself. That was the voice of self. And the voice of self is the loudest. It is the loudest because the flesh speaks very loudly. The flesh speaks very loudly. The voice of self is very loud. It's actually louder than the voice of Satan and his demons. It's louder. So we need to identify how to silence the voice of self. The biggest enemy is within, not out there, not without. It's within. We are our worst enemies. We are our worst enemies. So to be able to get out of this, we need to silence the voice of self. We've got to silence the voice of self. We have to. If we cannot silence the voice of self, we are not ready to overcome this thing we are calling the biggest problem in our lives. We must silence the voice of self. So how do we silence the voice of self? The easiest way that I know how to is fasting. I know somebody is like, what? Please don't talk about that. The easiest way to silence the voice of self is fasting. Fasting is denying the flesh the power over the spirit. Fasting is denying the flesh the power over our spirit or the spirit. We are in three persons. We have a body that is physical, visible. We have a soul, which includes the mind, the emotions, and the will. And we also have the spirit man, and that is the real you. That is the real person. That is the person who is eternal. That is the person who will never die. That is the person who will live beyond the grave. That is a person who lives on after life on earth is over. That person will be clothed with an imperishable body to continue living forever. The Bible says so. That the mortal body will be replaced with an immortal body. So when that happens, then we'll be able to say to death, where is your sting? Where is your victory? So that is the real person. That is the real person. We do so well when it comes to feeding the physical body. We do so well. We don't even need to be told to feed the physical body. We do it very well. Okay, not everybody does it very well. Some people feed the physical body junk, but the results are evident. You know, the results of somebody who is feeding the physical body badly are evident, because physical illnesses and all that, they can result from that. But on average, we know how to feed our physical bodies. And it is because when the cravings of the physical bodies come, we are quick to meet the need of our physical body. Whatever craving that comes, we are very quick to respond to those cravings and meet the need of the physical body, because we live in a physical realm and many things that we see are physical. So we are able to respond. But in the same way, our spirit man also needs to be fed. And the spirit man also presents cravings and needs and desires. But a majority of times we are unable to respond because those cravings of the spirit man are not as physical, and they cannot be felt physically like the cravings of the physical man. So many times we can ignore what our spirit man is craving for or asking of us to respond to. So many times we ignore that. For example, you might find yourself feeling like you want to take some time and pray, and you can feel it in your spirit that I really need to spend some time in prayer. You can feel it, and you can feel it. Or maybe I'm the only one who feels it. But I know people have told me that. Imagine I was just feeling like praying and just spending time in prayer and just talking to God. And I'm like, but why didn't you do it? I don't know. I just got distracted. I don't know. Just something happened, and before I knew it, time had passed, and what? I hear those kind of stories every other time. But if you were hungry, even if somebody was trying to distract you, you would tell them, by the way, I was on my way to get myself something to eat. So can we talk after an hour or so, after I'm done with my lunch, or after I'm done with my supper or dinner? It's very easy for you to say that. But when the spirit man is craving to be fed, or you feel like you want to spend some quiet time, you just want to pick your Bible, you just want to read something, and all of a sudden you get some distraction, you remember, oh my God, I was supposed to respond to this email, I was supposed to send this message to so and so, I was supposed to, instead of taking time and say, okay, you, all those things, wait, let me first of all take some time and read my Bible, let me just take some time to meditate, I feel like I need to do this. Instead of doing that, you allow the distraction, and several hours later, you remember you wanted to take some time and pray or read your Bible or meditate or be silent somewhere, just listening to God. And at that time, you don't even have time anymore. You can't even do it. Your time is up. That was the right time. It's like you wanting to go to have a meal and you get distracted by something, and the next thing you realize is like it's like 5 hours later, you can't even eat. You don't even feel hungry anymore. That is what happens. So all of a sudden you realize even the desire that you had, it's gone. It's gone. You don't even feel like doing it anymore. So fasting silences the voice of the flesh. And when you're fasting, I will say a few things that you do when you're fasting, because that time when you're fasting, you're supposed to be feeding your spirit man. That is why I talked about all this eating, feeding thing. I simply wanted to bring that point, that is when you're feeding the spirit man. If you took it seriously to feed the spirit man during your time of fasting, then your spirit man will begin to grow, and your spirit man will begin to take lead or leadership or control over your being. Your spirit man will begin to be the one controlling you. You will be controlled by your spirit. And because the spirit man connects with God very easily, then when you fast, it's like you're tuning into some kind of a frequency, a spiritual frequency that enables you to hear easily. It enables you to hear God easily. So if you decided that I am just tired of struggling with this issue, I am just tired, I can't live like this anymore, I need to identify and locate the way out. I need to identify and locate the way out. If you do that in a fasting mode meaning you are in prayer and fasting, and you're praying over this thing, and you're saying, God, I need to see a way out. You have spoken in your word that there is a way out. That is what I'm here for. I want to know the way out of this. I know I cannot win in this life until I win this thing. I cannot win in this life until I overcome this thing. I need to see the way out. That's why I'm here, God. I'm here. I want to hear from you. Reveal to me the way out. Reveal it to me, God. I want to hear it from you. Show it to me. Reveal to me the way out. I need a way out. At that point, when you're doing that, and your flesh has been subdued because you have not given your body food, your body feels weak. and the voice of your flesh becomes weaker and weaker. Before you know it, something opens up in the spirit, and you will not miss it. You will know it. You will know this is God. You will know it. You will hear it with the ears that hears God. You will know that this is the voice of God. This is God speaking. And this is God saying to me, this is the way out. This is God. And you will come out of that place feeling refreshed, energized, strengthened, comforted, encouraged, feeling positive, feeling like, yes, it's time to conquer. You'll feel like a conqueror, and you will know this is it. This is the way out. This is it. That must have been God. That must have been his voice. And even if the way out looks impossible, something inside of you will be telling you it is possible. You will not find yourself saying, if only, or I wish. You will find yourself saying, it looks impossible, but I know this is possible. This is God. You'll be so hopeful. You'll be so positive. You will look at that solution and you will go for it. You will feel like you can conquer the world at that point. And you feel so positive about it that even if somebody stood before you and told you, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Why are you dreaming? How could you'll tell them, wait a minute, give me time, and you will see that this is the way out. You will be so strengthened on the inside. You will know for sure this is God. This can only be God. It may look impossible. It may look like a huge thing to accomplish, but you will feel completely hopeful, completely positive about it, very encouraged. You'll feel like you've already conquered. You will not struggle with the I wish or if only. That will be gone. The conviction that you will have will be so strong that you will ride over that issue using the instructions that you will receive, and you will conquer it. So that is how to silence the voice of self. Fasting. Now there are 3 types of fastings before I talk about the voice of Satan, which is not a big deal. When you are able to silence the voice of self, the voice of Satan is no longer a big deal at that point. There are 3 types of fastings that you can do. The first one is called partial. A partial fast is where people even call it Daniel fast. Some people decide, I'm going to feed on vegetables for this length of time. And you can do it for a year if you want to. You can do it as long as you want. So you just abstain from some kind of foods. It's a partial fast. Some people also do it like you do 6 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So from 6 in the morning, you don't take anything until 6 in the evening. But then after that, you can take something. Even a normal meal. Some people decide, even if they're doing 6 to 6, then the purpose, I'm not taking meat, I'm not taking ugali, I'm not taking chapatis, I'm not taking for this length of time. It's called a Daniel fast. It's partial. So you deny yourself some kind of food. It's a partial fast. It's a good one to start with, because at that point you begin to discipline your flesh. Because even if somebody comes and tells you, can I take you for lunch? You tell them, no, not today. And then they come tomorrow, can I take you for lunch? No, today. What's the problem? I'm fasting. Oh, you do fast? Yes, I do. Yeah, I'm fasting. Oh, okay. All right. Because you don't have to keep saying hiding every other time. You get to a point where you're like, okay, no, this is my time of fasting. Oh, okay. All right. No problem. So you've already overcome that. Because many people can't even say that they're fasting. The devil makes people feel like you're bragging, you're priding yourself. But I'm fasting. I am fasting. Yep, I am. It's my spiritual discipline. I'm fasting. So that's why I won't come for lunch with you. But that only happens if the person insists. Then you tell them, hey, please, don't insist. No, but I want to take you for lunch. I am fasting. Oh, okay. All right, fine. I'm sorry. So you overcome that, just like that. So the second type of fast is called absolute, or the normal fast. It's called absolute fast or normal fast. Depends on which way you look at it. This is where you don't take anything solid. You only take liquids. So for this one, you can go all the way up to 40 days. You're not taking anything solid. You're only taking liquids like water or juices that are non-acidic juices. So if you're able to consecrate yourself or set yourself apart and do that, you can start with 3 days, then you go to 4 days, 5 days, 10 days, 14 days, 7 days, 21 days. You can build it up all the way until 40. Anything after 40 is not healthy. So when you're doing the normal fast or the absolute fast, don't push yourself beyond 40 because it might not be healthy. It's definitely not healthy. You don't want to die in the process of fasting. So by the time you're going to 40 days, your body is very disciplined. You can resist anything. One preacher said one time, I heard him when I was in high school, he said that if you can deny your body food, you can deny your body anything else successfully. So if you manage to deny your body food, I believe it's true. You can deny your body anything else. People who struggle with addictions, I am talking about this out of experience. I have taken people through this many times. The moment they accept to do the fast, the moment they accept, I always know that problem is over and our sessions are done. That person has entered into victory, and it always happens. When they accept to fast, and many times I fast along with them, encouraging them every day, until we are done, the final day. And then we organize on how to break the fast. I make sure they have enjoyed it with all the encouragement that they can get. And by the time we are finishing the issues they're struggling with, especially those addictions, at that point they are like, something has just happened. I feel different. I feel light. I feel this. I feel that. They tell me so much of what they feel, and I'm like, it's done. And from that moment on, we no longer have those kind of struggles. We go through the other sessions calmly, without much ado. If you deny your body food, especially if you do it for 7 days, I would encourage you to try 7 days. I'm so passionate about fasting, you can even hear it in my voice. I'm so passionate because it works. It works. So let me ask a question right there before I continue. What are some of the things that you have tried to do in your attempt to resolve this problem? I should have asked that question right at the beginning. What are some of the things that you have done to try and resolve this problem? What are some of the things that you have tried to do? Identify those. I should have asked that question right at the beginning so that now we look at fasting and we ask ourselves, has fasting been one of those things? So if fasting has not been one of those things, then that is the first thing that I want you to try. If you purpose in your heart that I want to get out of this problem, I want to resolve this issue, if you purpose it in your heart, then say to yourself that I'm willing to pay whatever price it takes to get my freedom from this thing, because I will either rise or fall at this point. I will win in this life at this point. I will lose in this life at this point. So I am not going to lose. So I'm willing to pay whatever price, whatever it takes to win in this life. And so I am going to do a fast. I am going to do a fast. So why do I want to do a fast? I want to silence the voice of the flesh. I want to silence the voice of the flesh. Why? Because I want to hear God. Why? Because He has a way out for me. All right, then do it. And then let's go. Get into a fast. And you will come back here with a testimony. You will come back here with a testimony. So that is how to silence the voice of the flesh. The third type of fasting, before I forget that one, it's called the Esther fast. Few people do this. It's a very difficult one. I've tried it and I can tell you it's not easy. This is where you do not eat anything or drink anything for 3 days. You cannot go beyond 3 days. Don't try anything beyond 3 days. Yeah, just do 3 days. It's called Esther fast or dry fast. You don't eat anything, you don't drink anything for 3 days. So by the second day you feel like everything is going around in circles. You want to stand, you can't. You're opening your eyes and it's like you're not even seeing. If you do more than 3 days, you can be dehydrated. You can get dehydrated. But it's a very easy way of killing the flesh. If you're just so tired of something, whatever it is that you're calling your biggest problem in life, if you're so tired, you're so fed up, do an Esther fast, dry fast. Push your flesh to a corner. If you decide to do this, then it's good to make sure that you're not going to work, because it might not work very well. So just make sure you're not going to work. So just be in a place where you can be rested, where there's no so much of activity, walking around and so on. But you can do it. You can say to yourself, enough is enough. I'm doing a dry fast. And then you go for it. 3 days. Push your flesh to a corner. Crucify your flesh. Subject your flesh to the toughest conditions. Deny your flesh food and water for 3 days. And why are you doing this? You want to silence the voice of the flesh, the voice of self. You want to silence it. So what do you do when you're fasting? Read your Bible. Meditate on what you're reading. Listen to good music, gospel music, that is talking about the greatness of God. Spend time meditating. If you have the gift of praying in tongues, that is the most powerful thing you can do. Pray in tongues. Pray in tongues. Pray in tongues. It works very well. Heaven opens. Demons shudder when you pray in tongues. Pray in tongues. Do it. And refuse to be distracted. Refuse to be distracted. Concentrate. Focus. Focus. So that's why I'm saying, if you're doing a dry fast, set some time apart away from your daily routines. 3 days only. So if this thing is such a pain in the neck, by all means, you should set apart those 3 days to get it off your back. By all means, you should do that. So that is how you silence the voice of the flesh, the voice of self. And that is the voice that speaks the loudest. If you're able to silence that, you're on your way to victory. The third voice is the voice of Satan. And the voice of Satan is not a big deal if you have managed to silence the voice of self. Why? Because the voice of Satan is always negative. The voice of Satan is always negative. So you will be able to discern the voice of Satan very easily when you have silenced the voice of self. So the voice of Satan is always a countering voice. It's like Satan doesn't know what to say to you until he hears what you're saying. And then he counters that. Or until he hears what God has told you, then he wants to come in and counter that. So the first voice that you hear most of the times is the voice of God. That is the first voice that you hear most of the times, that comes first. And many of us have heard that voice. Let me give an example. It is possible that at one point you felt something saying to you. People say, I had something inside of me, like telling me to go and see so and so. So you felt that, you heard that, and you're like, yeah, I think I need to go and see. And then another one told you, why don't you check tomorrow, because, and then you're given some reasons. And then a few minutes later, that person calls. And they're telling you something that makes you feel, yeah, there was a need for me to come and see you. And then you're short of telling them, I was even thinking of coming to see you, but another voice told me not to. So that other voice is always the voice of Satan. He always counters. So the first voice that you heard telling you, go and check on so and so, that was the voice of God. But because the devil doesn't want positive things to happen, he knows when you go to visit so and so, he knows if you call so and so, you will help them out, you will encourage them, and so on and so forth. And he doesn't want that to happen to that person. Then he makes sure you don't do it. He stops you from doing it for two reasons. One, he would want you to feel so bad when you realize that so and so was going through such a difficult time and you could have helped them, but you didn't. So he wants you to feel so bad about yourself. You'll be like, I don't know, why didn't I do? I knew I was supposed to see. I even felt something telling me to talk to them. So you'll begin to feel so bad. So when you're feeling so bad that you did not respond positively to that voice that told you to do it, when you're feeling so bad about that, the demons are very happy because they won. So you feel so bad, you judge yourself, you condemn yourself, you hate yourself. You're like, what kind of a friend am I? I mean, how couldn't I even, why didn't I, that. So demons are very happy when those things are happening. They feel so good, they laugh, they enjoy, they celebrate it. They love it when we are getting frustrated because we did not obey when God spoke to us. So that is how God speaks. Some people may call it intuition or a hunch. Some people say, I've had this kind of a hunch. So when it comes into your spirit, that is the voice of God. So you can choose to obey or disobey. So when we talk about obeying God, most of the time it is not so much about that I'm doing what the Bible says, even though that is critical and it is key. A lot of the times the obedience that we should be looking at is the one I'm talking about. When God tells you do something, you heard him clearly, but another voice came in and countered what you heard, and you found yourself not doing it. Now the voice that countered, and it all happens in the mind, that was the voice of Satan. That is how demons do counter. So obedience is both in what the word of God says we do or shouldn't do, and obedience is also when God gives us instructions and we hear those instructions in our spirit. Obedience means we do it. When we don't do it, we have disobeyed. And many times you will have some consequences when that disobedience is there. So when you spend time listening to the voice of Satan through his demon spirits, the kind of feelings that you will find yourself with after all the conversations with the demonic spirits are feelings of fear, anger, resentment, discouragement, despair, depression, hatred, jealousy, those kind of feelings. So anytime you find yourself with those kind of feelings, envy, those things, when you find yourself struggling with those feelings, you don't need to be told. You need to know right there that you have had conversations with the demonic spirits. Satan uses demons. Why? Because he is not omnipresent. Satan is not like God. God is everywhere, every time. He is omnipresent. God is here, God is there, God is everywhere. But Satan doesn't have that ability of being everywhere at the same time. No. He can only be at one place at a time. So we have a lot of time to fight these battles in our mind, because the demons are not there permanently. They go out on other assignments. So there are times when you have a window in your spiritual space to shift your thoughts, to counter those negative thoughts. We all have that window of opportunity, because demons cannot be present 24 hours in your space. There is a moment when they are somewhere else doing something else. And that is a moment that the Holy Spirit normally uses to call us back to attention, so that we begin to check what we are feeling. So if you find yourself feeling that way, you're discouraged and depressed and angry and all those negative feelings, then you need to know that you have had some conversation inside of you with some demonic spirit. And because they might not be there at that very moment, you have an opportunity to take captive those thoughts. That is what Paul says in 2 Corinthians 10, verse 3 to 5. You have an opportunity at that very moment to take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. You have an opportunity right there to take those thoughts captive. and make them obedient to Christ, meaning changing those thoughts. You have an opportunity right there to change those thoughts, right there. So do it. Just do it. How do you change? How do you take captive those thoughts? I had explained earlier, and you can check in my website, where we said, reject the thought. And we said when you reject the thought, they will keep bouncing back. Then you need to go a step further. And the step further is replace the thoughts. Replace the thoughts. That is where victory is in. Victory is in replacing the thoughts. So I had said earlier that we live our lives based on our beliefs. So when you're looking at this thing that you call your biggest problem in life, I said you believe it is. So it's a belief. And it is based on your experiences around that issue. So you can now begin to change that belief. You can begin to say, this thing is not going to be a problem in my life anymore. It has been my biggest problem. It is not going to remain as such. It is going to change. And you can begin to change your beliefs around it. Some of the beliefs that you might find around that kind of a situation is, it is difficult to do ABCD. It is so difficult to do ABCD. I don't know how I will do this. It is just difficult. I don't know how. You might find yourself having those kind of beliefs. So if you believe that it is so difficult to do this, you have already given up even before you have started the fight. So you have already lost the fight even before you've started it. But when you begin to look at it and say, this thing has been such a headache, but I'm declaring war in this area, and I'm winning this, and this thing is not going to remain a challenge to me. It is not going to remain as such. I am winning this battle. I am winning this battle. So you begin to change the beliefs around it. So that is a second way of dealing with it. Begin to change the beliefs around it. So the first thing we had said is identifying whatever it is. We have also discovered the voices that do speak, and they hinder us from hearing God. So when God comes to give us instructions on the way out, we have some voices that come in and they hinder us. We are unable to hear. So we have been able to identify those voices. We've been able to identify how to silence those voices. So the second thing in resolving this issue is begin to change the beliefs around it. Begin to change the beliefs around it. What do you believe about that issue? What comes to your mind when you think about that thing that you call your biggest problem? What comes to your mind? Do you find yourself feeling helpless? Do you find yourself feeling defeated? Do you find yourself feeling ashamed? Because shame is a big deal when it comes to dealing with some of these things. Shame can become a big problem. That even when God is speaking to you directly on how to resolve this issue, shame comes in and you're like, I can't do it. What if somebody knows? What if somebody gets to know this? And maybe God is telling you, share it with somebody. Expose this demon. Expose this thing to somebody. Talk to somebody about it. Get help from somebody. And you're like, I can't. I can't tell anybody this. I can't. What will they think? Wataniona aje? And the way they respect me. But God is saying to you, speak out. Tell somebody. You know, some demons take off when they are exposed. If you do not expose them, they stay. So some demons take off when they are exposed. So if you hear God saying to you, speak to somebody about this thing, and you find yourself saying, I can't. What will they think about me? What will they say? I can't. Then just know that that is a voice of Satan stopping you from following the way out that God has already showed you. You could be struggling and somebody can come in and help you, but you're like, I can't tell them I'm struggling. I can't allow anybody to know what I'm going through. Shame, fear of exposure, fear of being wrong, and so on. So when you find yourself struggling with those kind of feelings, then that is the voice of the enemy right there, stopping you from taking the way out that God has for you. So what are the beliefs that you have around that issue? Begin to change those beliefs. And then finally, when you change the beliefs and you come up with a new belief, meditate on the new belief for at least 30 days. At least 30 days. Meaning, when you wake up every day, because this is the biggest problem in your life, what else are you supposed to be working on if it's not that? Why should you begin your day with everything else and this is the thing at the helm of your problems? That your rising or your falling is dependent on you winning or losing this battle over this thing. Why should you start your day with other things? If this is the biggest problem in your life, it should be at the heart of everything that you do on a daily basis. This is the one thing that you should be thinking about consistently. And when you're thinking about it, you're thinking about it in terms of finding a way out. So when you wake up in the morning, the new beliefs that you have already made, that you've already come up with, I can help you to craft some of those beliefs. I think I might do another talk here on how to craft new beliefs, how to come up with new beliefs. Those are the ones you should begin your day with. They should replace your cup of tea or coffee. That before you take your cup of tea or coffee, you should first of all sit down with those beliefs. Recite them. Speak them into your system before you go out. And be conscious. Be conscious of this thing. So that if something comes up that is negating what you're trying to do, you will be able to recognize it very quickly. Do not allow anything else to override this thing. Let it be at the heart of everything that you're doing, and keep saying to yourself, I've got to win this. I've got to rise above this. This thing cannot put me down anymore. I've got to conquer it. I have to. So you are consistently looking for ways and means of conquering it. So that is how you feed your subconscious mind with the solution that God has already given you, the way out. Meditate on it. Feed yourself with it. Dwell on it. That means water it. Water the new seed. Do it. No one else will do it for you. You have to do it yourself. Many times we are waiting for everybody else to do for us things. We are used to having that kind of a phrase where, oh, pray for me, pray for me. Yes, we will pray for people, and we do pray for people, but there are some things that you've got to do it for yourself. You've got to do it. This is a fight where no one else will fight for you. You've got to fight through this. You have to. You have to. This is where you put on your gloves and you get to work. And it is not difficult. It is not difficult. Why do I say it's not difficult? Because all you need to do is meditate on it. Drive it through from your conscious awareness until it gets into your subconscious mind. When it gets into your subconscious mind, it becomes a part of who you are. We live our lives based on our beliefs, and our beliefs are as a result of our thinking. So when you begin to think this thing differently from the way you have always thought about it, when you begin to see this way out based on how you have received it from God, and you stop seeing it the way you have always seen it before, and you stop sabotaging yourself, and you begin to internalize the solution and speak positively to yourself and say, this is the way out and I'm coming out of this. Before you know it, it is being echoed deep down in your spirit. It is being echoed somewhere in there. So you will find yourself becoming that. You will find yourself becoming that. If you don't drive it deep down into your subconscious mind, then it will not become a part of you. So if you want to change from this thing, you've got to accept to do the work. Meditate on it. Think about it. Speak it to yourself until it gets into your subconscious and it becomes a part of you. So the solution will be coming from somewhere in there. And that's how you will realize that this thing has changed. It is no longer a problem. You have managed to conquer it. And that's how we deal with what is called the biggest problem in our lives. So whatever it is, look at it and just do it. Conquer it. Conquer it. So thank you so much for spending your time listening. Share this with somebody. Many people don't know what to do with themselves. And I can say a good number of those who don't know what to do with themselves are not able to discipline their flesh. That is where defeat begins. And the only way to discipline the flesh is fasting. Fasting and prayer. You can fast to diet, to reduce weight, or to get the health benefits. But this time we're not just fasting for health benefits, but it's always an added advantage. We are doing the fasting to silence the flesh. So we invoke God in our fasting. If you do not invoke God, you will get the benefits in terms of the health benefits of fasting. There are many benefits of fasting. But for this one, you need to be in prayer. And prayer, we say, it is talking to God. Talk to God about this thing in that state of fasting, in a fasting state. So thank you so much. We'll see you next time when I get another subject to talk about. I will let you know. So God bless you, and I pray that you win. It's your battle and it's your victory. Thank you.